Good afternoon. We're joined today on NR Private Market by Chris Eager, who's the CFO of Chaarat Gold Holdings, or Chaarat as everyone knows it. They joined NR Private Market in late 2020, and we thought we'd run through a quick update on their excellent results they put out last year in terms of production at Kapan and the way forward at Tulkubaş and Kızıltaş deposits and a general market chat. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
Good, thank you, Rich. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, operating in Armenia and the Kyrgyz Republic, you exceeded your 2020 guidance, which was excellent. It's always good news for the shareholders. Kapan by about 6%, I believe. Can you give us a rundown of the sort of preliminary results that you can tell us and when we can expect your annual report?
Sure. Look, thanks, Rich, again. We're actually quite pleased with how 2020 unfolded for the business. It was a difficult year for the entire world and still is. We navigated, I think, COVID quite well, and also in Q4 of last year, we had to deal with the Armenia and Azerbaijan conflict situation, which has put some negative pressure on our stock. That being said, the operations continued to perform throughout the entire year, and we were able to exceed guidance. We produced 58,000 ounces of gold equivalent versus our guidance of 55,000 ounces. We were able to reduce cost. We reduced additionally some capex spending, and most importantly, we continue to add value to the business relative to the acquisition, which was back in early 2019. So again, very pleased with the performance for last year. And as we've thought about 2021 for Kapan, we also continue to see growth with targeted gold equivalent of 57,000 ounces, and again, further cost reductions across the board. So a good cash flow producing asset, and again, very pleased with results from 2020, be a very difficult backdrop environment that we have faced today.
Yeah, most of us all of us had to cope with COVID, but you had the conflict situation thrown at you as well, which I guess is that's probably the biggest effect on the share price. But if you can operate through that situation, it should strengthen the resolve going forward and increase the upside considerably. So what other milestones can we expect perhaps over the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, so look, we do operate in, I would say, perceived challenged jurisdictions. However, on the ground, I can tell you that it's not nearly as complicated as people believe. So therefore, we see continued progress across the business. So we operate 3 assets, one in Armenia, which produced quite well in 2020, and again, expecting to continue in 2021. But we also have 2 assets in Kyrgyzstan called Tulkubaş and Kızıltaş. Tulkubaş is a near-term production, early-stage construction activity. Will produce 100,000 ounces of gold after the construction is completed, which is roughly 2 years. In 2021, one of the key activities is to complete the financing for that asset in order to get it fully funded and start full-stage construction, which we're targeting at the end of Q2 of this year. That asset will have roughly a 2-year timeframe to build, although we are still targeting to have first gold pour at the end of 2022. So the business is going through quite a few changes with regards to executing in our strategic initiatives. So most importantly, we are getting Tulkubaş in a fully funded state. And then also we are looking to continue to progress our third asset, Kızıltaş, which is our largest asset on the books. It's a 5.4 million ounce sulfide refractory deposit. This asset will be a several 100,000 ounce producer of gold once into production, but we need to progress it. And the next step is to do bulk sampling in order to define the processing technology to most capitalize on the refractory gold that we will come out of the mine. So we have a number of initiatives in 2021, as highlighted, continued growth at Kapan, fully funding of Tulkubaş, and further progression at the Kızıltaş asset.
So it's not far off that we can see Chaarat being a 500,000 ounce producer. That's amazing.
Yeah, no. That actually is obviously their goal. We've highlighted this in our presentations. Today we produce around 60,000 ounces out of Kapan. We envision that Tulkubaş will be 100,000 ounces in roughly 2 years, and then with Kızıltaş we have the capacity to produce another 300,000 ounces. So within the next 5 to 6 years, be a 500,000 ounce producer, and obviously a very different gold company with those levels. And that's one leg of the strategy. The other leg is to obviously utilize the platform to look for creative M&A opportunities within the FSU space. There are quite a few opportunities out there, but obviously an M&A deal only makes sense if it gets done and obviously at the right price, similar to what we did at Japan. But for now, I think we have a very attractive set of assets within the book.
Well, music to your ears on the M&A side. I know that's your background at Traff and Merrill's, but I mean, interesting. I'll jump to something I was going to go on to later on the ESG side, which is becoming all important for the investor base.
Yeah.
But actually, Evie Hamrow and I think it was Mark Bristow, PDAC, were chatting away, and they said, well, they were alluding to increased M&A activity around those who've got a handle on their ESG, and therefore reflects a lower cost of borrowing, or WACC, I suppose, and I hadn't put the two and two together myself. And maybe is there an opportunity in your region as the sort of Central Asian consolidator, as it were? You're a bigger group, and what's the ESG side? And do you see that sort of dynamism there?
Yeah, I do. Look, you've hit a couple of topics there. Look, ESG, which is covers a couple different words around environmental, social, and government relations, is actually what we think is the key to running a successful mining operation. We've seen many companies get it wrong by not getting these areas done properly, and you eventually see it in their performance. This is how we operate, which is to be incredibly local. So, for example, our staff at Japan, all but one employee out of the 1,000 employees is local. We have one expat. In Kyrgyzstan, it's slightly more expats, but still 90% of the workforce are locals. So it's quite important that you maintain a very dedicated local workforce, and then you create the right interaction with the local community, the governors of the province, and also in the government at the federal level. All of them obviously in the right way, but we're also spending a lot of time with the local communities. You can see this on our website, but we do quite a lot of activities with communities. And just last week with International Women's Day, we had an event. We host the Chaarat Cup in Kyrgyzstan, which is a national sporting event. We also have renovated hospitals, schools. We're very active with social media in promoting the communities, which is very important to operating within these countries. Although it's very important not to become the bank for the communities. So you have to do it properly, sensibly, but also we're here to run a business, and there has to be a healthy balance. But I think what Mark and Nevi have highlighted is key, because this is what successful companies are built off of, and it's a key part of our philosophy moving forward, and always has been.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess before we get onto the financing side of things, the project finance and the future there, I mean, I guess you can't brush it under the carpet. An unfortunate incident the other week, your first ever unfortunate fatality with a contractor. You've gone, I think, 9 million fatality-free hours or lost injury time rate. And lessons learned there, I appreciate it was an ore shoot, and those are probably the most dangerous areas of any mining operation. We're all aiming for zero harm, but lessons learned there.
Yeah, look, first of all, that was a tragic accident. Our hearts go out to the family of the deceased. Very unfortunate. Unfortunately, it happens in mining, and it probably will continue to happen in the mining world that we see such tragic accidents. There's an investigation ongoing. It was the first fatality. It doesn't really matter. It was the first. It happened. So it's a quite difficult situation. Unfortunately, it looks like it was due to human error with regards to the individual walking over a blocked ore chute, which is obviously something you just don't do. Nonetheless, obviously, we're continuing to review it. We take the opportunity to now talk about every single employee on site around the importance of safety. And it is tragic. Obviously, we don't wish this on anybody, and we'll do everything we can to avoid any future accidents. So it's going to take more of a cultural change to get it 100% right. It never is 100% right, but unfortunately, a very difficult situation.
Yeah. So going back to the financing side, you raised 52 million the other week. Can you explain more about sort of the interest from the market, the tactics for that, and perhaps obviously it's going to be used at Tukulbash and Kiziltash, but and perhaps the future fundraisings as well.
Yep. So look, maybe Rich, I'll talk a little bit about the overall financing strategy of the business, because we've raised well over $140 million of capital to date over the past 2.5 years in developing the story. That capital has been raised through a mix of public equity, convertible bonds, debt, and some private equity. Most recently, as you highlighted, we raised $52 million of equity in order to continue to advance the story of Chaarat. That 52 million was really broken into two components. There was 30 million of fresh cash, and this 30 million of fresh cash is earmarked for the capital required to build Tokabash. So Tokabash is a $110 million capital project. 30 million has been secured of that 110, with the remaining 80 to be sourced from debt or debt-like financing, which I'll talk about more in a second. The other components of their capital raise, which was 22 million, was a debt reduction in the business. So quite proudly, over the past year and a bit, we've reduced our overall debt by around 33%, and our net debt sits today at around $13 million. So we've made a massive deleveraging impact in order to enhance the credit profile of the business. Again, in order to strengthen the entire balance sheet and entire company to capitalize on all the activities for the future. So very happy with that capital raise. We ran call it a fairly targeted process to a number of institutional investors that we know well that have been following us. We had very good demand from our existing investors as well as new investors. We're broadening the shareholder base with investors across the world. And look, we think that it was the right time to access the markets and create value for our shareholders, as we'll continue to do so in the future.
Okay. Yeah, and with ISA season looming on us at 25p, then I guess you would hope that investors, both private and institutional, will look at that as well.
Yeah, look, exactly. I think going back to the share price, we were trading at around 40p back in September of last year. Then in Q4, because of the situation in Armenia and as well as some political activities in Kyrgyzstan, again, none of these had any impacts to the operations. We've seen quite a bit of downward pressure on our shares. So look, issuing at 25p was lower than what we liked, but again, we're here to make money for our investors and to continue to grow the business. And that's why I think we saw a very good uptake in the last equity raise. We don't see any future equity raises, frankly, at this time. Because we do have raised the equity capital for Tokabash. So the focus moving forward is obviously to execute on the strategy, create shareholder value, look to possibly do some refinancings of our existing debts with lower cost of capital, but frankly, get on with things and execute on the business.
Okay, and just to finalize things, it's crystal ball time. Gold price came off from sort of the highs of $1,900 an ounce down to 1,700, ticked back up again 30 cents an ounce to about 17.30. So your reactions to that on the cost management side, and how do you see the gold price and the environment going forward?
Yeah, look, so first, maybe on the cost side, our philosophy hasn't ever changed. As gold producers and miners specifically, we can only really influence the cost side of the business. That's why we've always looked to drive down cost, be sensible on CapEx spend, and generate as much free cash flow as possible, as we are price takers with regards to the gold price. We are generally, personally, gold buffs. We think that with COVID, we are sitting in an inflationary market, and we think that the gold environment will continue to support, the inflationary market will continue to support a strong gold price. But as we all know, the markets are volatile. There's a lot of funds flow in and out of the different commodities. There's cash moving to copper now. So I think that's why we've seen a bit of a retreat in the gold price. But I think, look, we'll likely be at these levels for some time, if not to grow at the gold price. But look, I think we make a good amount of cash at 1,700, 1,500, or even 1,300. So we obviously would like to see a higher gold price, but we stay a little bit agnostic on where the gold price lands.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Chris. Chris Eager there, CFO of Chaarat Gold Holdings, speaking to me on NR Private Market.
Great. Thank you, Rich.